We will continue with the figures of speech that we have in literature. We've been able to treat 7 out of these, and we'll continue from there. Another figure of speech that we have is the transferred epithets. And when we talk about the transferred epithets, we are talking about using qualifying adjective that is meant for a person and it is now used for a thing. It has a big semblance or similarity with personification. For instance, when you have sleepless nights, the night itself is not the one that is sleepless. We are transferring from the person that had the night to the night, the sleeplessness. Then also we have the somewhat met and the melodious playing. So these are examples of transferred epithets. Then we also have the euphemism. And when we talk about the euphemism, we are speaking or using a favorable term. We are using a favorable term to replace a disagreeable or unpleasant idea. Now, we have this more or less, it's part of courtesy in culture. This is part of courtesy in culture. Courtesy in culture in the sense that sometimes some things are not received as right to be said in some culture. And rather saying that, we replace them with something that is less harsh or that is far more agreeable and favorable to individuals. For instance, sometimes mentioning the sex organs in some cultures are actually seen as being not acceptable. And sometimes when even we say private part, what is the private? Which one is open part? Private part is a case of euphemism because no part is not private. All parts are private. But in the sense of not saying sexual organs or something, we used a word that is far more agreeable to actually replace it. That is the case of euphemism. So sometimes, for example, here, we have he has fallen asleep. If he has fallen asleep in the literal sense, then go and wake him up. But he has fallen asleep to mean he is dead. Because in some cultures, you don't talk about dead as dead. And that is a case of euphemism. So sometimes you listen and you hear someone that has been put in the family way. What is the family way? Who actually can explain that? But that is in the figurative sense, in the deep sense, that means he's pregnant or she's pregnant. Now, when we say she is pregnant or she has been put in the family way, we are trying to embellish truth, or we are trying to present it in a more agreeable format, and that is a case of euphemism. Also, we have irony. Now, irony is often used in creating sarcasm, and we are going to explain the concept of irony. When we talk about irony, that means we are using the opposite words, that is the opposite of what is actually intended. Now, for emphasis, please let's take note of this. We actually have 3 different types of irony, which actually create sarcasm. We have what we call the verbal irony. We have what we call the situational irony, and we also have what we call the dramatic irony. Now, we have to differentiate this so as to understand what irony truly is. Now, irony as verbal irony is saying the opposite of what is meant. saying the opposite of what is meant. For instance, someone that actually had F9 in all his papers, being described as highly intelligent, is more or less trying to say the person is actually a fool or something. Now that is a case of irony. Is like indirect insult, because with the result, even the person that you are saying, oh, you are highly intelligent, the person might be crying and say, look at how they are making fun of me, because he or she knows that such a person means the opposite of what has been said. You see the example we have, the child of a cobbler has no shoe. That is a case of irony, because it is impossible. So we have, that's the case of situational irony, situation going against the expectation. So for verbal irony, we are saying something that contradicts the intended meaning. So sometimes some parents in the African culture, especially maybe in the Yoruba land, might intentionally use this irony. We use irony a lot in Yoruba culture, and the reason is not trying to go direct, as they believe that what a parent says to the life of a child actually affects the child. So sometimes maybe a child takes a cup with water and put it on top of maybe a boxed television, and the mother is saying that you are so wise, oh, look at the right place that you have placed the cup. The mother is indirectly saying you are a fool, but because in cultural values you don't use such words on your child, so she's saying the opposite of what is meant, and that is a case of verbal irony. Now for situational irony, we are talking about a case in which situations goes against the expectation. This is how we have been wired, that this is how life should go. It is expected that if a prostitute, for instance, gets pregnant, it wouldn't be a surprise, that because that is expected. Now, but for someone that seems to be the only male around, getting pregnant, the situation has gone against the expectation. Now, we can now see in the example of the child of a cobbler has no shoe. It is against the expectation. How will someone be a child of a cobbler and the child has no shoe? That is a case of situational irony. Or maybe we hear that maybe a pastor impregnates the choir mistress or something. It's against the expectation. So it's a case of situational irony, because things actually goes the opposite of what is expected. And that is also, now for dramatic irony, which is also a type of irony, we're essentially concerned about the situation in which the audience in a dramatic presentation knows what characters on stage do not know. It's as simple as that. The audience knows that this person that is talking to this other person on stage is claiming to love the person, but from what they have realized, the person is actually planning the downfall of the hero. The hero does not know dramatically on stage, but the audience knows that this person is plotting the fall of the hero. Such experience is a case of dramatic irony. Then we have the pun. which is the play on words. It consists of a play on the various meaning of words. More or less, we use one word and we are giving it different. We are using a particular word with different meaning, just to create flair, just to create a ludicrous experience, or just to catch fun or something. So when we have that, we have pun, play on words. Now most times it is when we are using words that have semblance in meaning, or we are using a word that is closely associated to the word we want to use, and we intentionally replace one for the other. For instance, is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. Now, liver there is used intentionally. Look at it. Is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. There is nothing like the liver in the context of this, because the liver does not mean in the real literal meaning to mean the person living life, but the person has used the liver, which is an organ in the body, and have embedded it with extra meaning. Is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. Now, this is to mean that the liver is being played on. That is play on words. That is play on words. And we see the other example. Obviously, the Constitution is against prostitution and Congress is against progress. Now, when we look at it, con means against and pro means for. So you see the Constitution is against prostitution and Congress is against progress. And you will see the person is playing on the con and the pro, using them interchangeably. So that is the case of pun. Another example of a trope or figure of speech that we have is the epigram. And when we talk about the epigram, it is a brief pointed saying. It is a short, witty statement. It's more or less couples words which apparently contradict each other. Now, the language of, that's why we say it's a short, witty, or funny statement. So it's always very short but very punchy. For example, the child is the father of the man. Fools rush in where angels fail to tread. The art lies in concealing arts. Silence is sometimes more eloquent than words, conspicuous by its absence. So when we look at this word, they are very short, powerful statements, very short, straight to the meaning and full of messages. The child is the father of the man. Fools rush in where angels fail to tread. The art lies in concealing hearts. Silence is sometimes more eloquent than words. These are cases of epigram.
This is Valdymas College of Advanced and Preliminary Studies. We do excellent A-level programs for guaranteed admission into 200 level. We are in the success business and we transform minds.